I'll be honest with you, working with the Red Komodo X on a gimbal is an absolute pain. And that is due to the small lightweight form factor, because now if you use some heavy lenses, then it's really hard to balance it on a small gimbal. And you also don't have any internal ND filters, so when using matte boxes with it, it gets even worse. So I tried a lot of different setups and I finally found the perfect one for me. One that I don't necessarily have to use an easy rig with, one that I don't need to step up all the way to a Ronin 2, and I can actually manage this myself or with a focus puller, and I have everything I need, and I can even use some heavier cine zoom lenses. So without further ado, let's actually start. At first, we need a gimbal, and I'm using the DJI RS4 Pro, and this is pretty much the best gimbal that I've ever used. The auto-locking axes are an absolute time saver on set. It has a ton of features, it's really smooth, and it also has some mounting points that we're getting into a little later that work really well with this setup. It also has the entire ecosystem, so you can use it with the DJI Focus Pro if you want to run this solo and turn your cine lenses into autofocus lenses. You can use it with a wireless transmission system. Again, I will talk about this a little later. And overall, the DJI RS4 Pro is just the best gimbal that I've ever used. So now that we got the gimbal out of the way, let's talk about all the accessories and how I rigged everything together. The one thing I always use when shooting on a gimbal is a ring setup, and I'm using the Tilta Advanced Ring Grip. So here are a couple of reasons why I'm always using a ring grip. Number one, I think it's just way more comfortable to hold. If I'm shooting something high up, I can just grip it down low. If I'm shooting something low to the ground, I can just grip it up high. And when I'm not shooting at all and I need to carry it around, I can either hang it into the attachment on my camera card, or I can walk around with it with a top handle. When using the DJI RS4 Pro with the Tilta Advanced Ring Grip and the advanced side handle, I can fully control my gimbal wirelessly. I can use a joystick to move the gimbal around, I can change gimbal modes, I can recenter the gimbal, and if I'm using an external to USB-C cable, I can also start and stop recording. Before we start about how I rigged up the camera, let's talk about all the accessories around. Number one is I'm using a smaller rig monitor mount on top of my ring grip, and there I attached the Portkeys BM72DS to it. And here I can control my camera wirelessly via the monitor. The monitor is also really bright and big enough to see outdoors, so you can frame your shots and just expose correctly. Whenever I'm shooting anything on the Red Komodo X and I'm not shooting handheld as a solo operator, I'm always using the DJI transmission system, either to just have one feed going out to my focus puller or to have a feed going out to the director or the client. And most of the times it's both. I have one feed going out for the director client and one for the focus puller. Here we can attach the DJI transmission receiver directly to the DJI RS4 Pro with a dedicated cold shoe underneath the gimbal itself. This not only makes for a neater setup overall because it's tucked away underneath the gimbal and therefore is closer to your camera so you can use shorter cables, but it also acts as a counterweight for heavier setups because it's directly attached to the gimbal. When wanting to pull focus on a gimbal, you need a focus motor. And you can either use the one that comes with the Pro combo and then pull focus yourself via the side grip, or you could also use an external focus motor. The one that I'm using usually is the Tilta Nano 2. The Nano 2 is not only very small and lightweight, but it also packs a lot of punch for its size and it's very easy to use. And the cool thing is you can also connect the Nano 2 to your advanced side grip from the Tilta ring grip setup and pull focus wirelessly yourself if you don't have a focus puller. So now we have a bunch of accessories and the camera itself, and all of these need power. So let's talk about my power solution. I'm powering everything except for the gimbal itself via an external V-mount battery. Here I attached a CG Cine V-mount battery plate on top of the ring. And I attached this via an old DJI clamp that I had from years ago, and I don't think it's available anymore, but you can use any kind of small ring or super clamp, and I will link all the equipment that I'm using in this video down in the description below. The V-mount battery plate gives us a lot of power outputs. We have multiple D-taps, USB-Cs, and even VMO outs. So now we can attach all of our accessories directly to the V-mount battery plate, and that makes swapping batteries a lot easier. The V-mount battery plate also has an off switch so that it doesn't draw any power when we don't use the gimbal. So now the Red Komodo X is being powered via a D-tap cable that goes directly into the Red Komodo X on one side and our V-mount battery plate on the other. Same goes for our external monitor. The Tilta Nucleus Nano 2 is being powered via USB-C. And it's important to note that we go directly into the V-mount battery plate because it provides PD power, and that port provides 9 volts. We could also power it directly via the USB-C outputs from our gimbal, but this one only provides us with 5 volts of power. When you want to take full advantage of the power of the Nucleus Nano 2, you need 9 volts of power. The transmitter from our DJI transmission system is also being powered via DTAP directly from the video plate or the battery itself. It does come with a USB-C cable, so you could technically power it via the gimbal itself, and that actually works pretty fine, but there is a reason I'm not doing this. During a shoot, I oftentimes put the gimbal in sleep mode if I'm not using it for an extended period of time, or I even turn it off. The problem is when turning off the gimbal, it doesn't provide any more power to our DJI transmission system. And then it just has a power surge, and that could actually damage our SDI port and fry it on our Red Komodo X. And I don't want to risk it, so that's why I'm powering everything individually so that I know that everything has continuous power even if I'm turning off the gimbal. Because the gimbal itself is just being powered via the regular DJI battery group. And the cool thing is they also provide a new one now that is a lot stronger. Usually for an 8-hour shooting day, I barely need 2 of these. Usually even 1 could be suffice. But with the newer ones, you could probably shoot all day with just the one bigger extended battery grip. Now let's talk about the Red Komodo X and D-filters and lenses. The Red Komodo X itself is pretty stripped down, and all I'm using is the bright Tangerine cage. On the side of our cage, I attached a small rig 15mm rod clamp with a 15mm rod to accommodate for our tilter Nucleus Nano 2. To not only save on weight, but also to accommodate for bigger cine lenses, I'm using the Kipatai Revolver ND system. The ND filter system works really well, and the ND filters itself are amazing. And here we save so much weight over a front filtered system like a matte box with a variable ND filter. We also save a lot of time over just using solid ND filters or screw-on filters on top of your lens. My go-to lens choices for a run and gun gimbal job are a combination of the Tokina 11-20 Cine as well as the Sigma 18-35 Cine version. And I don't have the original Cine version, but I have a rehoused version by PC Hood, and I've been using this for years, saved a lot of money on it, and it works like the original thing. Both of these lenses are pretty chunky and they will make your setup really front heavy, so we need to balance it out via some counterweights. In order to quickly attach and detach all your counterweights, I bought a small rig attachment plate, and this one clips onto the original base plate that is provided with the DJI RS4 Pro. And I'm using the extended one, not the one that you actually put the camera on a little pedestal, but the one that is extended, so I have all the wiggle room to move my camera back and forth. With these two lenses, I usually need somewhere between 100 and 300 grams. And the little plate that I just mentioned accommodates for multiple. You can stack them and you can also put them horizontally. And I still have enough wiggle room in the back and all the clearance that I need. When shooting with a bigger lens, the 18-35, I use a Nisi screw-on mist filter if I need one. And when using the Tokina 11-20, I use a Tilta Mirage matte box with a mist filter inside. And they weigh roughly the same in the end, so that I don't have to rebalance the gimbal. I can just switch from the 11-20 with a matte box, and that weighs pretty much exactly the same as the Sigma 18-35 with the screw-on filter. Obviously, this is a very heavy setup. You can use it with an easy rig, but in a lot of these run and gun situations, especially when shooting in closer spaces, I prefer just winging it. And here I personally can shoot for about 8-hour shooting days, and I just had a project where I shot with it for 2 days straight, and it gets close and sometimes it does get really heavy, but overall it's actually not that bad. But this is obviously a very heavy setup with the big cine zooms. When using prime lenses, smaller lenses, you don't even need the counterweights and you can strip it down, and it does get a lot lighter. There you go. I hope you enjoyed this gimbal setup video, and I hope you can draw some inspiration for your own gimbal setup. Let me know down in the comments below if you prefer a ring grip or just a solo one-hand gimbal solution. And if you like this video, then please give it a thumbs up because it really helps the channel grow. Check out the links down in the description below, subscribe for more, and I hope to see you on the next one.